And now for the very last chapter of Number the Stars, chapter 17. It's called All This Long Time. The war would end. Uncle Henrik had said that, and it was true. The war ended almost 2 long years later. Anne-Marie was 12. Church bells rang all over Copenhagen early that May evening. The Danish flag was raised everywhere. People stood in the streets and wept as they sang the national anthem of Denmark. Anne-Marie stood on the balcony of the apartment with her parents and sister and watched. Up and down the street and across the other side, she could see flags and banners in almost every window. She knew that many of those apartments were empty. For nearly 2 years now, neighbors had tended the plants and dusted the furniture and polished the candlesticks for the Jews who had fled. Her mother had done so for the Rosens. It is what friends do, Mama had said. Now neighbors had entered each unoccupied waiting apartment, opened the windows, and hung a symbol of freedom there. This evening, Miss Johansson's face was wet with tears. Christy, waving a small flag, sang. Her blue eyes were bright. Even Christy was growing up. No longer was she a light-hearted chatterbox of a child. Now she was taller, more serious, and very thin. She looked like the pictures of Lisi at 7 in an old album. Peter Nielsen was dead. It was a painful fact to recall on the day when there was so much joy in Denmark. But Anne-Marie forced herself to think of her red-headed, almost brother, and how devastating the day was when they received the news that Peter had been captured and executed by the Germans in a public square in Raivangen in Copenhagen. He had written a letter to them from prison the night before he was shot. It had said simply that he loved them, that he was not afraid, and that he was proud to have done what he could for his country and for the sake of all free people. He asked in the letter to be buried beside Lisi. But even that was not to be for Peter. The Nazis refused to return the bodies of the young men they shot in Randvigen. They simply buried them there, where they were killed, and marked the graves only with numbers. Later, Anne-Marie had gone to the place where with her parents, and they laid flowers there, on the bleak, numbered ground. That night, Anne-Marie's parents told her the truth about Lisi's death at the beginning of the war. She was part of the resistance too, Papa explained. Part of the group that fought for our country in whatever ways they could. We didn't know, Mama added. She didn't tell us, and Peter told us after she died. Oh, Papa, Anne-Marie cried. Mama, they didn't shoot Lisi, did they? The way that they did Peter in the public square with people watching? She wanted to know it all, but wasn't certain that she could bear the knowledge. But Papa shook his head. She was with Peter and the others in a cellar. And there was a secret meeting to make plans. Somehow the Nazis had found out, and they raided the place that evening. They all ran different directions trying to escape. Some were shot, Mama told her sadly. Peter was shot in the arm. Do you remember that Peter's arm was bandaged and in a sling at Lisi's funeral? He wore a coat over it so no one would notice, and a hat to hide his red hair. The Nazis were looking for him. Anne-Marie didn't remember. She hadn't noticed. The whole day had been a blur of grief. "But what about Lacey?" she asked. "If she wasn't shot, then what happened?" From the military car, they saw her running, and they simply ran her down. So it was true what we said to you, that she was hit by a car. It was true, Papa told her. "You were all so young," Mama said, shaking her head. She blinked and closed her eyes for a moment and took a few long, deep breaths, so very, very young, with so much hope. Now remembering Lacey, Anne-Marie looked from the balcony down to the streets, and she saw that below, amid the music, the singing, and the sound of church bells, people were dancing. It brought back another memory, the memory of Lacey so long ago, wearing a yellow dress, dancing with Peter on the night that they announced their engagement. She turned and went to her bedroom, where the blue trunk was stood in the corner all these years. And opening it, Anne-Marie saw the yellow dress had begun to fade. It was discolored at all the edges, where it had lain so long in folds. And carefully, she opened the skirt of the dress and found the place where Ellen's necklace lay in the hidden pocket. The little Star of David gleamed gold. "Papa," she said, returning to the balcony, where her father was standing with the others, watching the crowd rejoice. She opened her hand and showed him the necklace. "Can you fix this? I have had it all this time. It was Ellen's." And her father took it from her and examined the broken clasp. "Yes," he said, "I can fix it. And when the Rosens come home, you can give it to Ellen." "Until then," Anne-Marie told him, "I will wear it myself." Fourth grade, I hope you enjoyed the story. I love the ending of it for the hope and the amount of love that's wrapped up in it. I think it'd be a good thing to talk about with your parents if you want to discuss World War II or what, um, all the meanings that went along with the end of the book here. I hope you are well, and I miss you. See you soon.